a ripple effect on many other facets of society. So remember that if we were to deregulate the price of oil, we would have taken simultaneously many other economic measures, and the total effect at the end of the day would have been to cushion the consumer against wild swings in the market, whether it concerns oil or any other product.
So in other words, you're saying that things can be done to kind of prepare for eventualities such as that?
Exactly, yes. If we had a forward-looking economic strategist at the helm of government, there need be no fear about the unknown.
Which we do not have now?
Well, let me just say that the president has been more concerned with political concerns, particularly with the reinstitution of democratic systems, rather than with the economic agenda. And by now, there is not enough time. She only has 11 months left.
Okay, we'll continue to pick the brains. So from Miriam Defensor Santiago when we come back from this brief break. Miriam, we're getting closer to discussing really political issues now, and let me start on this. One of the big $64,000 questions right now is whether President Aquino is going to run in 1992. We'll talk about that in a little while, but let me ask the legal question, because you're a lawyer, you've been a judge, and you are very familiar with all these issues. There is, of course, a constitutional question about whether President Aquino can run in 1992. Now, from a purely legal point of view, what is your opinion on whether she can, whether the constitutional prohibition applies to her?
That concerns Article 7 of the Constitution. There is a specific declaration: the President shall not be eligible for any re-election. Because of the word any, the President shall not be eligible for any re-election. Apparently, those who oppose a re-election for President Aquino argue that whether the President was elected under regular elections, which are contemplated for May 1992 by our Constitution, or whether she was elected by in elections before the regular elections, all the same, she's covered by the prohibition. I would say that since there is a doubt, in my case, I would be perfectly willing to resolve the doubt in favor of the President.
What about the argument that when the Constitution refers to the President, they were not referring to this President, but to future Presidents under the 87 Constitution? Does that hold water from a purely legal point of view?
Yes, that's possible. This is a genuine gray area of the Constitution, and only the Supreme Court can say with finality. Now, for me, the problem would be ethical. If I were a sitting president, if I were the incumbent president, and there was a legitimate doubt on my capability, on my qualification for re-election, which has to be settled by the Supreme Court, I would prefer for the Supreme Court not to resolve the issue at all, because if the Supreme Court resolves the issue in a negative way, it places the President in an embarrassing position. I would rather unilaterally renounce my rights, if any, under the Constitution.
You're saying from a purely legal point of view, there may be a basis for her to run.
That's right.
But from an ethical point of view, you would suggest that she not do it.
If I were in her place.
Okay. Well, she said so for about, what is it now? What's the last count? About 82, 83? That she was not going to run. Well, maybe we can take her word for it, because she said that again when Oka Orbos resigned. Now, let's move into that. You are very visible in terms of your campaign. One of the little needles that have been pushed towards you, in fact, was this thing about your office in the Guadalupe area. There's this big office of Miriam Defensor Santiago, what is that, offices or something? And some people are saying you're jumping the gun on the campaign. What is your response to that?
Oh, yes. I studied that. I read the election code, and apparently the election code prohibits any activity that is designed to convince the public to vote for a certain person for a certain position. And I wanted to publicize, naturally, like any other professional, the office. Yet you remember, since you also belong to the same profession, since we are both lawyers, that we are bound by the legal code of ethics. We are strictly prohibited from advertising our offices. So I couldn't write the name of the law office on the facade of the building for the simple reason that it would violate the legal code of ethics. But we did want people to be able to find the office readily. So, and because they associate it with me, in fact, the law office carries my name, there was no other choice. And I don't believe that there is any violation of the election code or any other legal provision.
But is that a campaign headquarters or is it a law office?
Well, it is what it says. it holds all the offices with which I'm connected. So the facade says Miriam Defensor Santiago offices, and then part of the wall lists all these offices. The first is the Miriam Defensor Santiago Associates Law Office. The second is the People's Reform Party. The third is the Movement for Responsible Public Service, or Movers. And the fourth is a trading company, which you are just establishing, called Lexus Trading Company.
But you really hold offices there?
Yes, I do.
You have, there's a law office there and everything?
Yes, of course.
Yeah, all right, okay. Now, surveys. We're talking about surveys. The surveys are uniform, and as we were talking about this in the break, they seem to be consistent, because you are always within the first 3 or 4 whenever it comes to recognition and the question of whether you are, would win in any kind of electoral exercise at this point. How do you read this? I mean, some people, after all of this time, and you've been at this now for how long, Miriam? It's been over a year, hasn't it been?
That's right.
Okay, after all of this time, you certainly have not made no secret about what you're after. Some people keep saying that the surveys don't translate to votes because what is important is an organization. Yet you come out without any kind of organization, if that's what they're saying, and these surveys are being taken at random with certain samplings which are supposed to be scientifically designed. You come out finishing very well. Number one, what is your response to those that say that those results of the surveys cannot be translated into actual votes come election day?
That is wishful thinking, because they do not rate high in the surveys. They vocally express the hope and the ardent desire that those whom the people really want, the truly popular figures, and I'm not referring to myself alone, but to those whom you said score maybe the first 4 or first 5 in these surveys. They ardently hope that the people indicated by the electorate to be popular will not win. That is their ardent wish. And apparently, by saying this, they are conditioning the minds of the public to the bribery and the terrorism that they are prepared to commit. For these people are even now flaunting in public their capacity to buy votes. They are saying we've got 1 billion, 2 billion, 28 billion pesos, which is the estimated expenditures that the previous administration is said to have spent during the last presidential elections. Or they're saying we've got the machinery. Now, what is the implication of this statement? This deprecatory statement that a person can be popular but can never be elected because this person does not have money and does not have an organization. This is a direct insult to the democratic system under which we all propose to live. For what is basically a democratic form of government? A government where the people elect those who shall be the governors. Now, the presidential surveys, although of an unofficial status, at least for those that are accepted to be objective, all the major presidential surveys consistently name certain individuals as top-notchers, maybe 4 or 5 of these presidentiables. If that is the case, we now know whom the people want to become president. And yet, certain presidential candidates have the effrontery to claim that notwithstanding this very clear message from the Filipino people, nonetheless, the individuals whom the people have indicated to be closest to their hearts should not be allowed to take office for the simple reason that they don't have money to use to buy votes and they don't have